Dialogue is full of stops and fades and pauses and cutoffs. No, the other kind.
It's like we finish each other's
sandwiches.
And screenwriters have developed shorthand to quickly and seamlessly communicate these ebbs and flows of conversation. But the most common two, dashes and ellipses, seem to be constantly confused by new writers. An ellipsis is just 3 periods in a row, and you'll see them absolutely everywhere in screenplays, including both narrative description and dialogue. And they were created to condense text by indicating some middle section was omitted with the implicit assurance that it didn't alter the original meaning. And in some senses, that's how it's used in screenplays today. Maybe the most obvious example being one-sided phone calls where we stay with the one character and can't hear whatever the person on the other end of the call is saying.
No, it's not like that. Yeah, I need that jacket that Mike gave me. Yeah, look, can you bring it here?
That other person's dialogue is omitted, so we replace it with ellipses. Without it, the dialogue would appear as if it were one continuous speech, where your character never stops to listen. If you've watched the earlier videos in this series, then you know we can also break up dialogue with narrative description.
Hey, it's March.
The man stirs, clearing his throat with a long, deep rumble.
Oh my where?
Or with dialogue parentheticals.
How many bookings you later on, though?
Pause.
All 8? How long to collect?
Pause.
So you have it all by tomorrow night?
These are totally viable options for phone calls, but using ellipses is a bit less intrusive, takes up less space on the page, and makes it more obvious that a character is listening to a response. But ultimately, it's a stylistic choice. While ellipses may have been created to indicate omissions, you may have noticed that they function in our phone call as a pause. And that's actually the easiest way to think about them when it comes to screenwriting. So then the question is, what makes them different from a beat? Ellipses are usually written into the middle of a sentence.
Joe Gardner, where have you been?
I've been teaching middle school band, but on the weekends
You got a suit? Get a suit, Teach.
The action or dialogue might eventually be completed, or might just trail off. It's not an explicit omission, but the ellipsis implies something more to the moment. Beats usually come after complete sentences and function more generally as pauses.
Just saying that there might not be much of a spread that she might not be up to. A lot of cooking.
Beat.
She hasn't been well.
They're more strictly about timing, but that's not to say that the timing of an action or joke can't have a big impact. But remember that pauses already have their own punctuation, periods and commas. Then Ellie stops, ahead where the meadow turns bare, bones. Ellie wills herself to walk closer because she wants to see, and at last, she does. In the field, scattered among the weeds and scrub brush, skeletons. Hundreds of bones, some partially covered by soil, some fully exposed and bleached. Anytime you're considering using an ellipsis or even a beat, first make sure a period or comma wouldn't be a better option. Outside of pauses and action and dialogue trailing off, ellipses are also used to indicate continuity. Similar to how ellipses used for omissions create a continuous statement out of disconnected pieces. Beginning a paragraph of dialogue with an ellipsis suggests something before the speech has been left out, meaning we're joining the person mid-speech. This could be a character entering a location where somebody is already speaking. Ted enters from a side door to a throng of cameras, bright lights, and reporters. Higgins stands in the front.
So without further ado, the new manager of AFC Richmond, Ted Lasso.
Or simply a scene that begins in the middle of a character's dialogue.
Then suddenly one morning, after 25 years of punctual 9 a.m. appearances, not only is he late, but he doesn't look like himself.
But this technique has evolved to also help us link continuous speech that needs to be interrupted on the page by description.
I would, but...
Her phone makes a noise. She holds it up to show him.
Called you an Uber.
Or by dialogue parentheticals.
You want to run off like your buddy Enrico? Well, because I've got news for you. He's either dead or he's...
Thinking about it.
Out there somewhere.
A little dreamily.
Seeing the world.
And continuous action can be split on the page just as easily by dialogue. With the tip of his sheathed sword inches away from her face, he then boops her on the nose with it. By trailing off the first bit of dialogue or description and showing the next starts mid-speech or action, you indicate that the two separate pieces are actually continuous. This continuation use case has also led to writers using ellipses to bridge narrative descriptions with primary or secondary headings. Tess moves down the hall and tries the door next to the closet. It opens to reveal interior, basement, continuous. The final line of the narrative description ends with an ellipsis and flows right into the heading almost as if it were one complete sentence. You'll also sometimes see this done without any ellipsis. Chief Carter walks back into the interior, Easttown Police Station, meeting room, late day, where Jess and Trisha Riley are waiting. And some writers even use dashes, though I don't think they're the best choice here because they serve very different purposes. There are actually 3 kinds of commonly used dashes. The shortest dash, the one on your keyboard, is a hyphen, which is used to connect compound words.
Sure, because if you were into him, I would totally get it. He's a good-looking guy, he's built like a brick, he knows magic.
They're also used to break multisyllabic words across a line break. Ruby treks through the woods alone, breaking through the trees. She reaches a massive granite quarry. It's breathtaking. But I don't really recommend breaking words within a screenplay, as it almost always improves readability to simply break before the word. The next length up is the end dash, which is basically only used to indicate a range. Mark methodically sets up cards marked A through F and 0 through 9 in a circle around the camera. They supposedly get their name from being about the same length as a capital N, while the largest dash, the M dash, is closer in length to a capital M. But all these lengths create a challenge for screenwriters. Scripts are written in a monospace font, so every dash takes up the exact same amount of space. So we cheat it. A single dash is used for both hyphens,
Maybe John's death is like a wake-up call.
and end dashes. Rose Gordon, 36 to 40, in pant and a shirt mops the floor. And also functions as a delimiter or separator between the elements of scene headings. Interior, high school, classroom, afternoon. And some technical directions. On Clark as she finishes examining Wells's ankle. For M dashes, we simply use 2 hyphens. Fred Rogers swings open the door beaming. He sings directly into the camera. His movements are slow. He's not as young as he once was. Which is why they're sometimes also called a double dash. M dashes have 2 common functions in screenwriting, to offset parentheses and to cut off action and dialogue. When you think of a parentheses, also known as a parenthetical phrase, your mind probably goes to the curved brackets that we also call parentheses. But these brackets are only one type of punctuation we can use to offset a parenthetical phrase, which is actually just any word or phrase that interrupts a sentence without affecting the overall meaning. Basically, it's an aside that explains or comments on something in the sentence. And they can actually be marked by all kinds of punctuation, like commas, parentheses, or dashes. In terms of screenwriting, commas tend to blend in because they're used all throughout your script. Behind him, Korg, a hulking Cronin rock alien, speaks up.
Hey, take it easy, man.
Thor looks back.
Over here, there's a pile of rocks waving at you. Here. Yeah, I'm actually a thing. I'm a being.
Parentheses, and I do mean the curved brackets here, are more obvious, but they already have some specific functions in a screenplay, so they can get a bit confusing. Into phone.
Hey, May.
Hey, Peter. I'm at work and,
Whispers.
one of the guys you're looking for just walked in.
Off Peter's concerned face. Exterior, feast shelter. Later, morning. But M dashes aren't used for many other things in a script, and they also tend to deliver an aside with a bit more impact. Pee-wee extends his hand, and when Al grabs it, he pulls it off. A fake hand. When used for parenthetical phrases, the M dash is usually written as space, dash, dash, space, though the spaces aren't strictly necessary. They can be used within a sentence by placing an M dash on either side of a parenthetical phrase. Daphne moves down the aisle, slowly, carefully, locking eyes with Her Majesty. Or to set off a parenthetical phrase at the end of a sentence with only an opening M dash. The man, dressed completely in white, lays prone, invisible in the snow, a rifle pressed to his shoulder. He works the bolt, chambers another round. As an extension of the parenthetical function, some writers use M dashes at the end of a paragraph of description to set off or lead into the next paragraph or dialogue. Pumping machines scream. Geysers of fire shoot vertically, like he's arrived in hell. But this can be a bit confusing because an M dash can also be used to cut off action or dialogue. And this time, we let her go, her body pale in the fading light as she flies across the glade, until suddenly, she disappears. Since paragraphs of narrative description usually span only a single action beat, M dashes used to interrupt action are almost always added at the end of a paragraph, and a new paragraph with the interrupting action beat or dialogue is added below. Interrupted dialogue often follows this same format.
I was thinking, maybe we should...
Poppy
What up,
barrels in.
ladies? You busy?
Yeah, actually we were...
Cool. I was thinking that we could hang, like Have a little girl chat.
The M dash at the end of a paragraph and the interrupting action or dialogue below. But characters can also interrupt themselves.
Okay, so you would rather die than be with me? Is that what you... No. You would rather die than be with me?
Real dialogue often starts and stops mid-sentence as we collect our thoughts, correct things, or shift topics. So do our actions. You should be more intentional than that in your screenwriting, but these interruptions absolutely have a place. When an M dash is used to interrupt or break dialogue or action, the M dash is often butted up against the last word so the cutoff feels more abrupt.
How'd the exhibit go? You do okay?
Fine, but I
don't want to hear about it.
Some writers also add an M dash to the beginning of the line or action that does the cutting off. You will also sometimes see only a single dash used for an action or line, paired with a single dash at the beginning of the interrupting element. She's tentative as she runs her hands over the clothes and shoes. She pivots, and she's face to face with a Dolce & Gabbana fitted silk dress. This is sometimes referred to as a broken M dash. Using one of these options can be helpful to link the actions or suggest something is cut off especially short or harshly. Though a similar effect can be achieved with just the first dash, since it's obviously not meant to be a hyphen or an end dash.
I'm gonna put you in touch with a colleague on the mainland. She's a great counselor.
Where's my baby?
Another place you might see dashes used is as bullet points for a series of shots or montages, which is why you should definitely check out this video to find the perfect approach to the series of shots or montages in your story.